22. All items are ready now unless there's any further questions.
Righty, Councilor Schultz.
Thank you, Madam President. I have items 23, 4, 5, and 6, and I believe they are all ready as well.
Unless there's any questions.
Unless there's any questions. Usually I'm the one who goes, no, I'm kidding.
And you got them all answered. All right,
Sorry.
thank you. Councilor Hogan.
Thank you, President Hudson. I have items 27, 28, and 29. 28 and 29 are ready. 27, I know there were some additional questions. I don't know if anybody has a question about it or.
Yeah, we had asked last week that maybe the transportation part, right? Neil Berg, that.
Michael, Commissioner.
Councilors Michael Collins, Commissioner for Neighborhood and Business Development. We were just conferring on this right now and understanding the questions that are still out there. It may be appropriate to hold this at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. I will hold that. I want to draw attention.
I'll just add to that.
Please do.
I think we're hoping that Neil would be here, but Joe Barry, First Assistant Corporation Counsel. The past practice when special permit questions have come up with parking or traffic and the council is not sure if it can't be adequately addressed at the study session, the council has directed the city clerk to send it back to the Planning Commission to review those matters and try to address those questions. So that's an option if you want to consider that. Or I see Neil's here, maybe he can answer the questions that you have.
All righty.
I mean, there were traffic questions, but it says here in the resolution that was passed, it said that there was a traffic impact letter of findings dated May 23rd, 2023. I don't know what else.
Is that the date that it was voted on by the Planning Commission?
Yes, that was part of the legislation that we received from the Planning Commission. Was that right, Neil, or Neil, can we?
Good afternoon, Council. Neil Burke, DPW. Councilor, you had a question?
Yeah, I said as part of the process for the special permit for this, it says here there was an applicant submitted a traffic impact letter of findings dated May 23rd. And it was, said it was like 78 additional trips and 441 during a Saturday midday. It seemed like they already did impact. That was a question that Councilor Majok had regarding traffic. You had concerns about traffic, and I think Councilor Schultz did too, right? Mm-hmm. So there was I just want to point out there was an impact.
Yeah, that's the preliminary aspect. We still expect the applicant to come back to us with further fleshed out plans to address a lot of the items that have already been brought up here. We have shared SMTC's study with them, and we expect a number of items from them, which we've relayed, and we're going to work with them from now until the permitting process.
But this is no different than any other procedural
Correct.
thing, a special permit. So I don't know if this allays any fears we have or anything like that, but I can't really see sending this back, to tell you the truth.
So let me ask a question though. Okay, so you said that they have to do their own, right? You talk to them. So what happens, we say yes to this, and what happens when their study comes back and it's different? What happens?
So we have already told them exactly what we expect of them. There are a number of items that we expect them to incorporate into their design, specifically updates to that traffic signal. So we know they've given us the preliminary numbers. We're going to work with them. It's always a process to make sure that they're meeting the goals that we're setting forth.
And if they don't, do we have any clawbacks? What happens?
If they're not meeting these items, then they're not issued their permits.
So it doesn't happen unless they meet all these criteria. And there's about, I mean, you pointed out about, it's got to be 8 of them here. So everything from elevations to like utility plan to a site plan. So
Yeah, a significant amount of work, but no different than what we expect of other developments, especially large developments.
So are the mitigations that you're proposing that they make identical to what SMCC has outlined, or do you take that and
So SMTC's work was conceptual, but we have provided that to them essentially in bulleted form, and we expect them to address all of those items. We're not going to stipulate, what color the traffic signal pole is going to be. Actually, we might do that, but we do allow them and their design engineers to work through these items, submit them to us for review and final approval.
So, sorry, not to bring up rezone again, but I'm bringing up rezone again in that significant parcel that was R1 residential, that's now R4 mixed use. That was not considered in the SMTC study, and that was on their map as green open space. I'm just wondering the implications that that might have when and if that gets developed. Like, car wash just does what they have to do, and then if that gets developed, then they have to take over the traffic mitigation?
Yeah, we can't account really for that level of hypothetical development in any sort of traffic study, but if a development that you're mentioning on a new parcel takes place, they'll be expected to go through the same sort of process that anyone else is, just like the car wash.
They did consider a potential development in the car wash space when SMTC did this. That was the
yes.
Brighton Muse, it was called, and now that's off the table. And now car wash is on the table. So, I mean, I'm sure the new traffic study will
Right, I
solve
mean,
those
this
issues,
is like,
but
there's a garage and a house on the site right now, right? So, I mean, so this would
Vacant,
change.
so there's no trips currently. Anything done would add.
right.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Mike.
No, I mean, I think the council brings up a good point, but I do think, let's just say someone builds a big housing complex on Lafayette Road, that developer should be the one paying for those mitigations, right? And not-
Absolutely, and we'll expect that of any developer in that area or any other area as well.
So I
Well, there's
guess,
already one up there. It's called Nab Hill, so.
I guess relating to this project, I vividly remember that we talked last week about the TIP project that is going into that intersection. What is that? Because part of the question that I have is the narrowness of the street, right? And that's not the developer role. It has to do with us and the state and all of that, right? So what is that TIP project going to do specifically?
So I can
this.
outline that for you. The engineering department handles TIP projects, but that will address that entire corridor, specifically existing lights, updates to them, rebuilds to the entire signals. So there will be a significant amount of work to incorporate, again, concerns that you've identified previously, concerns that the SMTC concepts brought up, and other items that are typical of a substantial project like that. So pedestrian concerns, again, signal concerns, capacity, all of those items are on the table.
So, just so we are clear, if they don't abide by anything that's been stipulated here, it says, be it further resolved, the conditions enumerated or not comply with approval shall be subject to revocation. So, I mean, I don't know why we're sending it back. If they don't approve to this, I'd rather push this forward, President, and have a vote on it rather than, because if I'm not right,
Did Michael ask us to hold it?
So, councilors, I was ineloquent in my approach. I was trying to rush in and had not completed my thoughts on it. Our thought was to Councilor Hogan's point, if there is a change in the site plan, then it needs to be referred, that it will need to go back to the Planning Commission. And in that case, then it comes back to the council. So, certainly if you all feel like you're at a point where you've got your, the understanding of the safety mechanisms we have in place, then we're absolutely fine to proceed. We just want to be clear about the fact that if it does change, then yes, it would go back to the, then that would mean that they would not get the special permit. I'm saying that correctly? Yeah, and then we can.
Just clear it up. So, and this happens, modifications do happen, right? We're back before you for a special permit modification. So there's two paths. You could either push this forward and vote, and if there are modifications, we would introduce that back to you as we've done before. Or, we could hold this and take care of that now and then come back to you. So it's, if that happens.
are there modifications anticipated?
Potentially, and I think it's dependent on the details within the traffic study on what might need to be done, especially for curb cuts and things on the site, allowing cars in and out the way they need to be controlled. But we don't have that. So how this could work is if we went back to Planning Commission, what they would do is refer the applicant to DPW to work out those details, and then they would refer it back to you. And then at that point in time, we hopefully wouldn't need any modifications because we've already worked that out. But we could do it the other way. It's like, in theory, give them what they have now and then do the same thing and then bring them back for the modifications.
That's
So
double work.
yeah, I mean, so the various things happen that can trigger a modification. Like maybe there's a fire code or building code thing that's like, this is going to change your site a little bit, so now we have to modify it. Like that happens too. So these are things that, you know, come up from time to time where we're back, where we have to make a modification to make that approved site plan and from Planning Commission and from the council, because that site plan would be attached to a special permit approval. So
So either way, it comes back to council. It doesn't matter
well,
which.
it could, if there's modifications from what's in front of you today, then we would come back for a modification, yes.
But procedurally, that happens all the time. There's not.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not all the time, but it happens, yeah.
Okay, what do you, Councilor
can I
Majok,
hear-
would you rather have us send this back?
Let me hear from Barry. Barry?
Well, I don't know if Barry wants to speak. Barry, can you speak? I know you're on the planning commission,
You mean
but
Joe Bear?
Barry Lentz from the Planning Commission?
Yes.
If the council is okay
I
with
had
him
a question.
speaking, he can speak.
It's-
well, I think it's up to Barry.
It's up to the council.
Okay, so let's leave it alone then.
I have one last question
Sure, go
to
ahead,
tag
go
onto
ahead.
your question from last week about the crashes and the accidents. We were going to ask Neil for follow-up on that. Because SMTC found that there were 130 crashes within 4 years. So is that normal? Is that acceptable? Is there a range?
Acceptable, no. You know, we hope for zero, but in a intersection that handles this significant of volume, I would say it's not atypical.
We're adding to that significant volume, likely with cars waiting to get washed in a line, waiting.
That I can't say. Their trip generation numbers are fairly modest.
Maybe you can move to Madison County where there's less traffic or something. I mean, this is,
Traffic is good for car washes,
I
no
mean,
doubt
yeah.
about it.
We also put in the comments, Public Works, that if there were any adverse impacts post-opening, we would expect the applicant to make necessary adjustments. I'm not sure what the enforcement mechanism is there, but again, we'll be paying close attention. We have an upcoming project in this area already, so we're on site.
Up at Seneca and Brighton,
So
Yes,
81 or,
as a city-initiated tip project along Brighton.
oh, what Mary mentioned.
Yep.
I, as a district counselor, I see that there's a lot of mechanism in place to make improvement. Holding this back and sending this back, for me, may not allow those improvement. As a council, we have a right and the ability to stop it if we see that those stipulations are not being met. So I don't want to stop that.
yeah, okay.
I don't want to stop that. Let's push it forward, but with all those stipulations to hold everybody accountable and make sure that they are met for the safety of that space.
Thank you, Councilor Majok. I think that's a good idea. I mean, everything's procedurally the way it's always been, and they'll come back to it if there's modifications, so. I'm gonna call this ready, President Hudson, and 28 and 29. You want to talk too, Joe?
Well, Corporation Counsel, I'm their zoning attorney. There are some procedural concerns or complications.
Okay.
And since we have an executive session scheduled momentarily, I think it would be best if we discussed it in that forum, because special permits are special, no pun intended. They're not normal legislation, and they are subject to what's called an Article 78 proceeding. So these matters can be litigated if some party is unhappy to it. So therefore, it's best if we give our legal advice in private.
We're going to executive session.
I'll stay with that.
What are you saying? Are you saying you're gonna hold it for further discussion, or are you just gonna wait to after?
After executive session.
Okay, good.
All right. Counselor Majok,
Oh, that's me?
that's you.
I got excited on Hoagie items, okay?
Yeah, I know, I guess you did.
I have item 30 and is ready, unless if any of my colleagues have questions.
No questions.
All right.
All
That'll do
righty.
it for me.
Counselor Hogan?
Yes, thank you, President Hudson. I have a resolution affirming the city and the Syracuse Housing Authority is committed to advance the community vision, and I'd like to add that to as a waiver agenda item.
All righty. Well, with that, we've concluded our study session. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Executive session.
Adjourn to executive session. Second? All in favor? All right, see you in executive session.
Oh, okay, so this wasn't the, this is.
Yeah.